Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Post Game Pints podcast. My name's Mitch Gallo with Sean Campbell, and we are at episode 110 and very happy to be brought to you by LaBrosse. In fact, this week or this weekend, we have a new beer being launched. It is the Post Game Pints beer. And if you've tasted our other beers before, you know they can be strong. Campbell's had a couple IPAs out there. I had my coffee brew as well, but these are perfect for drinking after you play sports. A little bit lighter, tinge of lime, perfect for the summer, nice and cold. When you're off the ice, you want to crack one of those post-game pints beers.
Yeah, I think that's what we called it, post-game pint, because that's exactly what we were going for, and that's what we like to do after a good hard work. You work 20, 25 minutes hard on a post-game, pints podcast. You still need a pint anyways afterwards. So it's the perfect beer for that. So looking forward to that launch. Check it out, 133 LaBrosse, a proud sponsor of the Post Game Pints podcast, and we're really excited for this next one, and I hope you are too. If you support us, support them. That's how it works, and then it all comes around full circle because we support you when you comment below and you like us and you follow us. What is it? YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, iTunes. I mean, the list goes on and on. Did I miss it? Did I miss anything, Gallo?
I think that's everywhere we are currently posted. But hey, if there's a platform that we are not on and you want to hear us on that platform, you let us know and we'll make it happen.
Yeah, that's what Trying to Do Entertainment does out there. That's what they do. They make sure that everything gets done. You want to jump right into our rapid fire, and it's been a while. The Montreal Canadiens season has come to an end, just like the Florida Panthers season has come to an end. That's why I'm wearing this hat today. But I kind of want to touch on a couple topics with the Canadiens before we get into some random sports thoughts. Would you like to start with the Canadiens?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
All right. In the last 3 weeks since the Canadiens won the draft lottery and are going to be drafting first overall, has your mind changed? Like, it seems so many people on social media saying that don't take Shane Wright. It was, as time goes on, people want to downplay Shane Wright being the first overall pick for the Canadiens. They want to start looking elsewhere. They want to start looking at maybe Slavkovsky, who's having another great tournament as a teenager before he gets drafted. Has anything altered your perspective heading into the draft July 7th in Montreal, Mitch?
Absolutely not. It's only been a couple weeks since the Canadiens had won the draft lottery. And look, I'll tell you, 99% of the people that you're talking about have never really watched either play. Yeah, they've seen maybe Slavkovsky play at the World Championships right now. How many games is that? Yes, they've watched Shane Wright play at the World Junior Championship. That was 2 games. I think people really overreact. I'm going to let the scouts do their job, and they have Wright ranked number 1. So I'm going to stick with number 1. Look, the Canadian scouts might see it differently. I don't think they will. They might. And if that's the case, sure, go ahead and take Slavkovsky. But don't mess up. Don't mess up that pick. I think, Sean, covering all the drafts that I have, people get caught up way too much with size at times. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm also saying it shouldn't be a determining factor in anything. I know you want to talk about Yoel Armia and what you've seen at the World Championships. That's a great example. I mean, Armia is a big guy. Doesn't mean he plays big. I'm going to bring up Eric Goodbranson during Random Sports Thoughts. He's a guy who went 3rd overall because of the fact that he was big and robust. I just think you can make a lot of mistakes when you take a player solely because he has size. And look, Slavkovsky, he's having a good tournament. He's putting up points. He's playing on a team that's not exactly stacked. He's doing it at 18 years old. I'm not saying he's not going to be a good player. I'm just saying it wouldn't be my determining factor, a small sample of this tournament and the Olympic Games. What I will tell you is that if I'm the Montreal Canadiens, I know that Tom Fitzgerald has said that he would be open and willing to trade that draft pick. I don't know if the Canadiens have the ammunition to get a trade like that done, but I'd be on the phone because, hey, all those years ago, Brian Burke was able to mess around with trades at the draft and get the 2nd and 3rd pick and get both the Sedins How about instead of arguing if the Canadiens should take Wright or Slafkowski, they make a trade with New Jersey, they get the second pick, and they draft Wright and Slafkowski.
You got to think about it too. They do have 4 first-round picks in the next 2 years, and the 2 next year in the bigger draft, or the deeper draft, or the one with the Connor Bedard draft. They actually have 2 unprotected, like, lottery picks. They have the Florida Panthers pick, and I'm not saying that Florida's going to dip, but we don't know what kind of changes they're going to go through with after that blowout against Tampa Bay. And just, about evaluating and changing your mind and flip-flopping as a recreational draft fan. And I'm with you, Mitch. You and I have been covering the draft for ages. Between the two of us, we've been at every draft in the last 14 years.
I've missed one.
Yeah, and I went. And then you were in studio, right? Like, what I mean is we've covered it together. You've been on location for every single one. We went to Chicago together, Buffalo together, covered the one in Montreal together. Like, I know you've been to Philadelphia, Dallas, all those cities, right? You've been on the draft floor. I've been on the draft floor. We get prepared for the draft. You and I love covering the draft. It's fun. But I do rely on the scouts. I'm not a scout. But what I will do, and this is where I can see where this hype gets, and people get excited. And Mitch, we've spoken about it. I'll go do my own research. I'll go watch, and I'm not going to be scouting these guys, but I'll go watch some highlight reels. Then I get caught up on a guy. And I remember there are certain players that we were talking about early in the first round that maybe was a first or a second or a fifth. And I was like, man, I really like that. I saw this highlight. And I told you on the air, I was like, I saw this highlight reel that I liked. And one was Tim Stützle. I remember talking to you at draft. I was like, I really liked what I saw from this guy. Andrei Svechnikov, when I was trying to make that case for him to maybe go first overall, because everything that I saw with him. And the other one was Moritz Seider, the defenseman who likely will win Rookie of the Year. And I'm not saying that I'm right or wrong with where they were drafted. My point is, you can get caught on one player just by watching their highlights, thinking that they should go higher than they should, just because you're watching a highlight reel that's meant to amplify their abilities. You're not watching a 60-minute game. So that's why I think you have to be careful. But we have those conversations all the time. But when I look at the scouting and I read the little black book, or, the red line report, or if we talk to Shane Malloy, who's, been hockey prospects, or whoever we want to talk to, your own sources, you make your decisions after that. But then here's the thing, Mitch, we can have our decisions. Our decisions mean nothing. It's still the team that will make theirs. And they're not, flipping through draft magazines. They're relying on their scouting staff. So I think that when push comes to shove, nothing's going to change. Shane Wright's going to Montreal.
I think so. Look, you also have to look at, I always say don't draft by position, but don't pass on a center. If the center is in the top spot, don't pass on the center. I mean, that is a recipe for disaster to me. And I think
the word is don't overthink this.
Don't overthink it. I think that if you take Shane Wright and Slafkowski turns out to be the better player, that's one thing. But if you take Slafkowski and Wright becomes the better player, then you're in a world of hurt.
All right. A couple things. World Hockey Championships having Josh Anderson looking pretty good for Team Canada, and other Montreal Canadiens out there. I saw Yoel Armia. When you see, and I'm just seeing highlights from Armia, and this is, pulling Armia things that when he's on his game, you go, wow, how can you stop this guy? When I see that, when you see someone perform at the World Hockey Championships that didn't perform for the Canadiens this year, does it make you think, okay, maybe be a little bit more patient with this player? Maybe just wait and see if he's going to be able to bounce back next year. Like, an example is an Armia.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I think, you could have players that have down years. You could have players that are in not the most ideal of situations. And maybe that was the case with Armia. I'm going to stick by the fact that I never liked that contract, and that, Sean. And I think Armia leaves a lot to be desired at times. But I think he's a good player, and I think he could bounce back. I just think that the scenario has to be right for him in Montreal to do so. He's always played very well for Team Finland. Been a good international player for them. So, look, I take it with a grain of salt, but I do think that it's encouraging to see him playing well. Josh Anderson, didn't know he had that kind of playmaking ability, Sean.
No,
He's
we've never
usually like
seen it.
a
We've never seen that
he's
ever.
he's usually like a Cy Young Award winning pitcher, going 20-4 or something like that. And now all of a sudden we see all the assists on the board at this tournament. It goes to show you what playing with good players will do for a player. But you know what, Anderson, I'm glad to see him doing well for Canada, and that big ice with a straight line player, it could be very beneficial.
I just hope for Anderson he's able to take that into next year. He has a big contract with the Canadiens. And Mitch, I've pretty much determined that he's a 25-15 guy, 25 goals, 15 assists, 40 points. That's fine. But at $5.5 million, you may want a little bit more offense. And when you don't get that offense, make sure you're doing the things that he does when he has the 0 goals and 0 assist games. And I think that you're starting to see some of those little things at the international level. Can he bring it to the Canadiens next year? One more thing. Are you worried, Martin St. Louis? Then still no announcement here about being the head coach next year. Is this
Yeah,
something? No, we're good.
nah, I don't really care.
Okay,
I mean,
just bringing it up. Just bringing it up.
Ken Hughes is over in Finland at the World Hockey Championships. I think, scouting and making sure they have the prospects ranked in the right spots is on much higher on the priority list than, say, signing Martin St. Louis to his contract. Look, I think this is pretty much a done deal, and sometimes these things take time. You look at the situation with the Vancouver Canucks and Bruce Boudreau, right? It looked like there was some negotiating that had to go on there, and finally they come to terms on a deal. As I wonder what the contract is going to look like in the end. I want to know what kind of money St. Louis is looking for, what the term is on this contract, and it's a bit of a unique situation with someone who was very popular when he came in, seemed to be very liked by the players, but in the end, you look at the results and they weren't dramatically different record wise. I know, the goals for and the blowouts is one thing, but record wise, not a whole lot of difference when he came in. So, what does that equal to on a contract and the term and the money dollar value on it?
I think
That's
you're
what we have to
thinking.
wait and see.
Yeah, sorry, Mitch. I think you're thinking 3 years. He's a rookie head coach, no experience. I'd be shocked if he hit 3 million. But he also has the name, and the market will drive up that price. Martin St. Louis, the Montreal Canadiens, maybe it is going to be 3 mil, because we know that right now, a guy like Barry Trotz, who is one of the all-time leaders in wins as a head coach, he's looking for a job. He's interviewing, and he's going to get $6 million because he's Barry Trotz. Martin St. Louis does not have remotely even close to the amount of wins that he has or the pedigree that he has as a head coach. He still has to develop that. So, but maybe he knows that the Canadiens are only looking at him, so he can drive that price up. I think 3 million is the top end here. I would expect probably something between 2 and 3. That's my guess. One last one, Caden Primo in the AHL. Mitch, this is good news for Canadiens fans. I think after a real rough season, looks like he's turned a corner, at least at the AHL level.
Well, you know what? You look at the numbers with the Montreal Canadiens, 1-7-1, and it was tough sledding at times. And now in the playoffs with the Laval Rocket, a record of 5-1. I think he's only let up 2 goals in 102 shots faced or something like that. The save percentage, the goals allowed, and he's winning. I think playoff success is huge. I'm not the biggest believer in him as a prospect, Sean, but if you're a fan, you have to be encouraged by the way he played, considering how difficult the regular season was.
I think you got to be encouraged just because he's taken a hit on the chin, right? He was drafted in the 7th round, so there was no big pedigree coming in. But then that grew when he went to Northeastern, and then when he played the World Junior Hockey Championship for Team USA. Then everyone's thinking, oh, he's the heir apparent. And then the way that Marc Bergevin set up the contracts from Jake Allen to Carey Price, it was set up where Caden Primo would come in just as Carey Price's contract was coming out and Jake Allen was done. And then he would share the net with Price and then take over. It was this long plan that they had in place. Last year, he got thrown to the Wolves. Mentally wasn't ready. Physically wasn't ready. The Canadiens weren't ready. Montembeault wasn't ready. And it was a disaster. That hits you hard. Then you actually get hit at the beginning of the playoffs after you were the best goalie in the AHL last year. You never had any playoffs. This year, your numbers were good in the AHL. And then when the playoffs start, they go to veteran Kevin Poulin. That hits you too. But then when he got the opportunity, he's taken in and ran with it. To me, that's a mental move. And that means he's growing, he's preparing, and he can handle adversity. Now, will he be a great goalie at the NHL level? Still lots of time. I still think he needs another year in the AHL, Mitch. But a good playoff run can go a long way.
All right. You want to get to some random sports thoughts?
Yes. Do you want some music?
Love some music, please.
All right. You have to give me a second. I have to figure out how to do this music thing again.
You've done it before.
I know. I like this one, I think. I think this is the one I like.
There you go.
Yeah. Is that a good level for you?
Perfect.
Okay. Random sports thoughts. Feel free to send your random sports thoughts to Sean R. Campbell, Mitch Y. Gallo at Postgame Pints. We're on Instagram, Facebook, the Twitter machine. I have my first random sports thought. Mike Smith of the Edmonton Oilers looks like an e-bug, an emergency backup goalie. Even with his equipment, he looks like, because most of those guys are in their 40s or in their late 30s. Every shot, when you have an emergency goalie, we've seen it a couple times, right, Mitch? When an emergency backup goalie comes in and some Zamboni driver, every single shot that comes from the point, and if it's your team that has a goalie, you're flinching. You're like, oh my God, they're going to score, because you don't think he can make the save. That is the reaction I have when I watch Mike Smith. I think he's the e-bug. He's an emergency backup goalie.
You might be a little less on the music.
Yeah, I was just fixing that.
Yeah,
It picked up a bit there.
I found myself listening to the music more than you. No, you a little harsh on your side there, Sean.
He's been playing well. That's fine. And we know that the long goal that came in, and I like to call him Flinchy McFlitcherson, but at the same time, he does not instill confidence. If you were an Oilers fan, are you confident watching him in goal?
No, definitely not.
Okay.
But I don't think he looks like David Ayres either.
Yeah, he's a little slimmer.
That's for sure. You know what? My first random sports thought is about Henrik Lundqvist, about Mike Smith, because, Sean, I think he is the biggest diver among goalies since Henrik Lundqvist. I hate floppers. I already don't like goalies. You know that.
Yeah.
Remember? I don't remember what the soundbite was from, but it was myself at one of the Habs games saying, "Down with goaltenders." Not a fan of goaltenders. And Mike Smith makes it even harder to like that breed. I don't like goalies, and I hate floppers, and Mike Smith is right at the top of the list right now with floppers in the NHL. Stay on your skates.
You know who flopped a lot? Senators.
Craig Anderson.
Anderson, yes, Anderson.
Oh, yeah. He was right up there.
He flopped. Yeah, he was a flopper. Lundqvist, big flopper. Who else? Maybe he's not a flopper, but just his demeanor in net. Robin Lehner. Maybe because he was a Senator too. I don't know what it is to me and the Senators. I don't like Matt Murray either.
I don't mind Matt Murray.
Nah. It's weird. There's a guy in the Dallas organization. His name's Matthew Murray. And he's a goalie.
Is he good?
He's really good. That's why I get confused. I'm like, what? He's over there? Oh, no, he's just better than Matt Murray. But Matt Murray's a Stanley Cup champion, so I can't take that away from him.
Good time.
This one I'm stealing from my good friend, JP O'Connor. Shout out to JP. And I don't know where he got this because he doesn't have any hair. But he has been dropping the term hair cape when referencing Sami Niku. And the more I think about it, it is a quality term. I know we get lettuce, right? When you talk about hockey players' hair. But hair cape, when it's nice, long, and smooth, like Chris Tanev, he's got the smooth hair. Pizzetta doesn't have a cape. Too many waves. But the hair cape is a quality sports term. to describe somebody's hair. I just have to give a shout out to JP. It's my random sports thought. I just really like it. I like dropping it once a broadcast in Laval Rocket just for JP.
Sean, my second one, I'm going to stick with the embellishing theme.
Mm-hmm.
It drives me nuts because I see this all the time. People who say you can't have a penalty and an embellishment penalty. It's either a penalty or it's embellishment. It can't be both. I could not disagree more, and I hate that argument. I can be tripped, fall down, and make it look way worse than it was. Stop with the argument that it's either one or the other. You can 1000% have somebody embellish, but it also be a penalty.
Okay, and I'm with you. I'm not going to argue. I'm going to stop. The only thing that doesn't happen in the NHL now is just the embellishment penalty. That's an issue when there is no penalty and then someone embellishes, because even the guy that didn't do anything will get called for the hook or the trip because the guy made it look that way. I get you, because you can have just a penalty and both happens, but the NHL needs to look into every now and then just call the embellishment.
No, I'm with you there.
Okay, but they don't do that.
No.
When was the last time you saw just embellishment? I've seen just embezzlement, but not embellishment. My third random sports thought. I don't know if you're going to agree with me or not, because you might. I would take Andre Vasilevsky in a Game 7 over Patrick Waugh, Marty Brodeur, or Dominic Hasek in their prime. In a Game 7 situation, I would take Vasilevsky over those three greats when they were on top of their game. That's how good Vasilevsky's been in elimination games. And that's saying a lot, because I know Mitch. I know what you think of Hasek. I know what you think of Patrick Waugh. I know you hate goalies, but I also know you know how good they were when they were the best. And we could throw Marty Brodeur in there. But Vasilevsky in elimination games of Game 7s, I think I'm taking him over them when they were at their best.
This is almost more like a hot take than it is a random sports thought. And Sean, I'll tell you, you could not be more wrong. That's a ridiculous statement for you to make.
Is it really that ridiculous when in the last 7 elimination games, he's had 200 shots and he's let in 1 goal and he has 6 shutouts when the stakes are at its highest? Our last episode for clutch performers, for some reason, we didn't bring up Vasilevsky. With those numbers, he should be the first round pick. It's insane what he does when his team needs to win a series. Insane.
Yeah, but those are also some really good teams he's played on.
Yes.
I mean, if you put the 1999 version of Dominic Hasek, who took the Buffalo Sabres led by Miroslav Satan, Mike Pekka, and Schmelik all the way to the Cup
Richard
final.
Schmelik.
If you take that Dominic Hasek, that version of Hasek, and you put him on this Tampa Bay Lightning team, I think, you see the last 7 games, Vasilevsky has only allowed 1 goal in series clinchers. I think Hasek lets up 0. So look, I don't want to say anything bad about Vasilevsky. He's obviously the best goalie in the league right now. But to compare him to guys already in the Hall of Fame based on this small window that he's played well in clinching games, I think you're being a bit ridiculous.
I don't think it's a small window. I think that's a pretty wide window, because you could go back to 10 games and he's won every single one of those 10 games. And I'm just saying that Vasilevsky, not the overall Vasilevsky that we see every day, but that's still a great Vasilevsky, and he has a lot to prove. He's so young, and maybe by the end of his career, we'll be able to say that. I think it's insane that I am saying this, but those numbers that he puts up, they're special. That's something special. As a netminder with good teams in front of him, but he's still stopping everything. Everything. In 7 games, he's let in 1 goal. You just can't beat that.
Sean, my final random sports thought is older hockey fans and younger hockey fans see the game completely different. And I've seen this going around on social media, right? I saw a tweet. Somebody put out a text message conversation that they had with their father, who loves Eric Goodbranson. And I know older hockey fans love Goodbranson type of players. I think Goodbranson sucks. Like I think he is brutal, and I can't believe that Calgary keeps putting him over the boards on the PK when McDavid and Draisaitl are running around. To me, it's crazy. But hey, Sutter's an older hockey guy, right? I just think it's interesting how the old guard and the new guard see the game so differently, and a guy like Eric Goodbranson really highlights that point.
Yeah, there's a lot of players that, you could have that old school player, but you need to have that new age game. Let's be honest, and I'm not comparing Goodbranson to, an example of a Hedman, but Hedman has old style game in him as a new age player. That's what makes him so great. And then you have the little bit of a difference, like a Cale Makar, which is the complete new age of defensemen that the young generation love, and they'll say Makar over good. I get that. I would watch that 100 times, but you still need the old school style defense, but you just can't have straight up old school defense. And it's funny. I watched the Johnsons on Colorado.
Yeah.
And I, by the way, I think they're both better than Goodbranson, but there's a little bit of that old school mentality on them. And then you get to Josh Manson, which they picked up. He's got that old school, but he's got that new age ability to skate and move the puck. So I'm with you that people get caught up in old norms. Oh, you need that big defense. Parenko, perfect example. Big bruising defenseman, but he could do other things. You can't just do that one thing anymore. And we saw it with Ben Sherratt with the Canadiens. Big bruising defenseman, but he was able to bring skating and a little offense to his game when he played with the Canadiens. And I think the Panthers were hoping to get that. I wore this for you, Mitch, by the way. I know that's the end of Random Sports Thoughts, but I wore this for you because we do our picks online. And I'd like to finish the show, talking a little bit about our picks. And we'll put our third round picks. And you had Tampa Bay. And just the day of game one, with Braden Point being out, being hurt, you made that switch. Take me through your thought process of switching, Mitch, and then watching this series unfold.
Look, man, you got to follow your gut. And I shit on the Florida Panthers and the Calgary Flames all year. And then we're in the second round of the playoffs, and I picked Calgary and Florida to win their series. I'm an idiot. That's what I was thinking watching the series between the two teams play. I am an idiot.
That I'm watching Tampa Bay, and I stuck with Tampa Bay, but I thought Point that was going to make a difference. I think this is a devastating playoff loss for the Florida Panthers. And I know that you were tweeting about the comparisons to Toronto and Florida. Losing to your state rival for second year in a row, but worse with a sweep after all the changes you made, going to win the President's Trophy. I think that Florida will have that knee-jerk reaction with something this offseason.
Well, look, you don't have Sherratt coming back. You don't have Giroux coming back. You don't have a first-round pick for 3 years. It's going to be tough in Florida. They still have a talented group. To me, Sean, that reaction that you're talking about, maybe it's the coach.
Maybe they need their old coach back.
Yeah, I think they could definitely use their old coach back.
All right, that's it for us here on the Post Game Pints podcast. Mitch, remind everybody what's happening at Labrosse this Saturday. It is the launch of what?
The Post Game Pints beer. So come by Labrosse. I'll be there on Saturday afternoon. And even if I'm not there, buy some of those delicious beers. You will not be disappointed. And if you're listening online, make sure to click listen and subscribe. We love your commentary. Thanks again, everybody, for listening to the Post Game Pints podcast.